My husband invited his ex to live with us without my permission, and I said no. But he told me that if I had a problem with it, I could leave. He'll have the problem when I divorce him and his parents find out. I'm 27 years old, and I've been married to my husband Jacob, who's 28 for almost 2 years. But I think we're heading towards divorce because of something that happened 3 days ago. A few days ago, my husband brought home a friend of his from high school who turned out to be a woman. This woman, Allison, was his friend in high school. When he brought her home, it was in the afternoon, so I thought they had met at the mall where Jacob had been, and he brought her home for dinner or something like that. I welcomed her and treated her like any other guest. But during dinner, I felt that something wasn't right with this person. The way she talked to Jacob made me feel like they had something going on in high school. By the end of the night, I just wanted her to leave. Honestly, she made me uncomfortable with her inside jokes with my husband and the way she would get close to him or try to touch him every few seconds. It literally seemed like she was looking for excuses to touch his arm or hand and laughed excessively at all his jokes, even the ones that weren't very funny. I guess people can understand why I didn't feel comfortable with this woman. After serving dessert, I thought she would leave soon. I tried to be as nice as possible despite how uncomfortable I was. But 2 hours passed, and around 10 o'clock, when she still hadn't left, I took Jacob aside and asked him what the hell was going on. It was strange that she just wasn't leaving, and only when I asked did Jacob tell me that he had invited her because she had been evicted from her house. Apparently, she hadn't paid rent for the past 4 months, and now she was going to spend the night at our house, probably for the next few days, until she found another place to move. He also told me that they hadn't met at the mall, as I had thought, but had actually reconnected on social media and had been talking online for weeks before this. So he knew she was looking for a place to stay and offered her to move in with us for the time being. Obviously, I was upset and asked him why he hadn't consulted me before offering her to move in. I also told him that I didn't feel comfortable with the idea of her living with us in our house because she had made me uncomfortable throughout the evening with her strange behavior around Jacob. He tried to downplay it and told me that he was just helping a friend in need. But I told him I wanted her to leave and that I wasn't going to put up with this. I insisted that he talk to her and tell her to leave, but he told me that he had already promised her and couldn't break her heart like that. Apparently, all her things were in the car, and she had left her apartment that very day. He had helped her move and couldn't just tell her it wasn't going to happen. He was acting really strangely, so I asked him to be honest with me and tell me who this Allison was. And it turns out I was right all along that she had something with Jacob in high school, because he confessed that she was actually his ex-girlfriend from when he was a senior, and they had broken up because he had to leave for college. I got pretty upset when he told me that because the last thing I wanted was for my husband's ex-girlfriend to live with us, especially when it seemed like she still had feelings for him. He promised me that he and Allison were over and had been separated for a long time, but that did nothing to ease my insecurities. I told him I wanted to leave and that I wanted her to leave immediately. I was pretty angry and sounded like it too. I expected him to take me seriously, but instead he turned around and told me he wasn't going to kick her out and that if I had a problem with Allison living with us then I could leave instead. He told me that he was just trying to help a friend in need, and if I was so insecure that I couldn't even handle that, then I was the problem here and should leave. After saying that, he walked out of the room and left me alone in the bedroom. I was shocked that he chose Allison over me, his wife of 2 years. We had even been in a relationship for almost 3 years before getting married, so I think I should be much more important to him than some girl he dated in high school for a year before going off to college. I was stunned after he told me to leave and didn't know what to say for a few seconds. When I went back to the living room, I saw that he was sitting on the couch next to Allison, and they were laughing at some comedy that was on TV. Allison even had the audacity to tell me to sit with them, and then she moved to sit very close to Jacob, while I had to sit next to her as she snuggled up with my husband. After she said that, I left and went back to the bedroom, packed some of my things in a bag and walked out to the living room. I didn't even care that Allison was there. I told Jacob that either he kicked her out immediately and we could talk about this, or I would leave. He didn't say anything, just pursed his lips and looked away, while Allison got up and started talking to me in a falsely sweet voice. She told me that she didn't mean to cause any trouble, that she was just an old friend, and that's how it was going to be. Then she turned around and asked Jacob, "Right, Jack?" Now I know that Jacob doesn't like being called Jack, but when Allison said it, he didn't seem to have a problem with it. I just sighed and walked out the door, slamming it as hard as I could. Jacob didn't even come after me or try to stop me, and of course Allison didn't either, because it was obviously what she wanted from the beginning. It was a bit creepy, but once I was out the door, I decided to stay a bit and see what was going to happen in the living room after I left. I know it sounds crazy, but I really felt in my gut that this was something I needed to do. Luckily for me, I was able to spy through the curtains since we never fully closed them, and I saw that as soon as I left. Allison and Jacob sat down next to each other. I could barely hear it, but they were having a conversation that was definitely about me. Jacob seemed upset, and after a while, to my surprise, Jacob lay down and rested his head on Allison's lap while she stroked his hair. I was furious when I saw that, and in the heat of the moment, I decided to take out my phone and take a picture of the two of them in that position. They couldn't see me, but I could see them, and I made sure to get an angle where both of their faces were visible in the photo. When I finished taking the picture, I decided I didn't need to stay any longer and walked to a friend's house. I could have taken my car, but I really didn't feel like driving, especially when I was in such a bad mood. Honestly, I just wanted to walk and think about what I had just seen. My blood was boiling, and I felt like I had to do something to get back at Jacob for what he was doing to me. So before knocking on my friend's door, I decided to go online and post the photos I had taken with a caption that simply said "cheater" and nothing else. After posting the message, I knocked on my friend's door, and she let me in. She had just checked her social media and asked me what the hell my post was about as soon as she saw me. Once we were in the living room, I explained the whole story while we were on the couch, and she told me that I had gone a bit too far in how I was handling this because the comments were already full of hate toward Allison and Jacob. She told me that, while she agreed Jacob needed to be called out for what he did, posting such an intimate photo of them was probably not the best way to handle the situation, and I could even get into legal trouble if things escalated. I listened to what she said, and it made a lot of sense. So I decided to delete the photo from my account. But even after removing the post, several people continued to message me to repost it because they thought Jacob deserved it. I was touched that so many people were on my side, but my friend gave me a harsh reality check by saying that they didn't really care about my marriage or my relationship with Jacob. They were just interested in the gossip they could get out of it. So I needed to stop feeding into the drama and ignore the people who were messaging me because they only cared about the drama that would come out of this, not my emotional well-being. She was right, so I decided to turn off my phone for a while and do something to distract myself. It was already quite late when I got to my friend's house, so after a while I just went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, my friend told me that Jacob was waiting for me outside in the living room. He had arrived just a couple of minutes before I woke up, and although my friend had tried to send him back home, he refused to leave without seeing me first. I thought he was here to apologize, and I was already prepared to reject him and his apology because I wasn't particularly in the mood to forgive at that moment. But when I walked into the living room, ready with my speech, I was surprised when the first words out of Jacob's mouth were, "I'm sorry, but you're crazy. What the hell were you thinking?" I knew he must have been upset about my post from the night before, but he seemed more than angry. He seemed hysterical and very agitated. It all finally made sense when he told me that someone had sent that photo to his parents, and now they were refusing to speak to him. This was serious for him, because he had been planning to quit his job and start his own business, and he needed his dad's money for that and wanted his father to come on as an investor. But now his dad wouldn't even speak to him, and his mom wasn't answering any of his calls or messages either. He told me that his parents hadn't even given him an explanation for why they had blocked him, but he knew my post had to do with it because it happened right after I uploaded that picture of him and Allison. Now he wanted me to talk to his parents and tell them it was all just a joke or something like that so they would start talking to him again because he wasn't going to let my stupid mistake ruin his future. I probably would have apologized to him if he hadn't demanded that I talk to his parents and fix everything. Honestly, after what he did the night before, I didn't think he was in any position to make such demands. It really bothered me how arrogant he was acting, so I told him he deserved it because he had been cheating on me. To that, he responded that Allison was nothing more than a friend and that I was blowing everything out of proportion. Then he accused me of being insecure, jealous, and toxic. He even told me that after I left, Allison had been comforting him, which is why he rested his head on her lap. He claimed that they hadn't done anything inappropriate together after I left because that simply wasn't who he was. I told him I didn't trust him and didn't believe a single word he was saying. I told him he needed to leave because I had no interest in continuing this discussion and ruining my day. From my point of view, he had been emotionally involved at the very least with Allison, and I couldn't handle that. I saw it with my own eyes, and there was no way to hide it anymore. Even if I ignored the fact that he rested his head on her lap and somehow erased that image from my mind, I couldn't forget that he had chosen to let her stay with us even after I told him I was uncomfortable with the idea and had given him an ultimatum to choose between us. And he chose Allison. I wasn't okay with that, and I don't think any other woman in my position would have been okay with something like that. I told him to leave, and he did, but not before telling me that this wasn't over, which sounded like a threat, and I guess it was. But so far, he hasn't done anything other than send me persistent messages, telling me to talk to his parents and fix this. My friend thinks I should talk to his parents and do something about it because as bad as what he did was, I shouldn't have posted that photo of them. Even if I wanted to expose them for what they were doing, I should have just made a post or something like that. But I posted a photo that really wasn't okay with her, and she felt it invaded their privacy. I feel like she's right about this, but honestly, I can't just forget what Jacob did to me. I'm pretty sure Allison still lives with him, and my blood boils when I just think about the two of them in that house, my house. I feel like I should do something, but I really don't think he deserves my compassion for posting a photo of my husband with his head on his high school ex-girlfriend's lap after choosing her over me. Update 1. So I decided not to talk to my in-laws or do anything about it because, like I said in my original post, I really don't think my husband deserves anything good happening to him right now. If he wants to fix the situation, he'll have to do something about it himself because I'm not the one who's going to run to his parents begging them to forgive him when I haven't even forgiven him myself. It's been 4 days since I posted, and almost a week since Jacob brought Allison home. I'm pretty sure she's still living with him because I created a fake account to spy on her, and I found that all her recent stories have a very familiar background. All those photos were taken inside and around my house, so I know she's still there. I can't imagine the audacity Jacob has to allow Allison to stay in our house even after everything that's happened, but to be fair, everything that could have gone wrong has already gone wrong, so he might as well stay with her. Because now I think we've reached the point of no return. I can't imagine getting back with him at any cost, and he probably won't even try. So far, he's only been texting me, trying to convince me to talk to his parents. I've just been ignoring all his messages. I still haven't found the strength to block him, but I'll do it soon as I'm ready to completely cut him out of my life. I'm not there yet because we've been together for a long time, and this is very hard for me. I was angry in my original post, but now that all the anger is gone, all I feel is desolation because this is the end of my marriage, and I know it. The funny thing is, I didn't even see this coming. Many of you asked if there were any signs that he was bored or wanted to be with someone else, and to be honest, there were never any signs. At no point did I think he didn't want to be with me. Him cheating on me was something I never even imagined in my worst nightmares. It was literally so unlikely. He and I had been in love for years, and he was practically head over heels for me before he even asked me out. I was the one who took a little while to say yes, but once we were together, there was simply no going back. And now, here is where it ends. I really could never have foreseen this, so to say I'm devastated wouldn't be enough to explain how I really feel about my marriage ending this way. My friends have been very supportive, as have my parents, and I'm grateful for that. I just hope I can stay strong through the divorce as well. I've already started the divorce process. It's been a day since then, and I have to say, I don't feel as relieved and confident as I thought I would. All I feel is stress and worry about what's going to happen. I'm still living with my friend and working from home because I don't have the energy to go out right now. Update 2. Today, Jacob received the divorce papers. He called me to ask if I was seriously set on this, and I told him yes. Then he started yelling at me over the phone. I had to move the phone away from my ear because he was speaking so loudly. He told me I was taking things too far and tried to convince me that there was nothing between him and Allison. So I asked him if he was still letting her live in our house. He hesitated a bit, but then he admitted that Allison had been living with him since I left. He told me she had been his emotional support. Apparently, I couldn't help but laugh when he said that. I pointed out the irony in what he was saying, because if it weren't for Allison and their strange little friendship, he probably wouldn't have needed emotional support in the first place. He got very upset when I said that and told me that Allison always spoke very highly of me, so he was disappointed to hear me treat her as competition instead of as a friend. I told him I didn't care what Allison thought of me. In fact, none of this was about Allison, it was about him and our relationship. I told him I was divorcing him, not Allison. He was the one who failed me. I couldn't care less about that woman, even if I tried, but I did expect certain things from my husband, and he didn't live up to those expectations. I expected a certain level of loyalty from him, and I expected him to prioritize my feelings and our marriage over his friendship with his high school ex-girlfriend. He told me I was being unfair and unreasonable. He once again told me that Allison was literally nothing more than a friend, as if that was going to change anything. Then he asked me what I would do if I were in his position, where a friend of the opposite sex asked me for help. I sincerely told him that I would have tried to help as much as I could, but if my husband felt uncomfortable, I wouldn't hesitate to choose my marriage over my friendship. For me, my marriage was the highest priority, and he had shown me that wasn't the same for him. I'd rather be with someone who was on the same page as me, especially on important matters like this. He started to sound really exasperated and told me I was being too emotional about these things and needed to learn how to manage my feelings like an adult instead of acting like a baby crying and then storming out just because things didn't go the way I wanted. He then tried to give me a lecture about how life isn't fair and blah blah blah, but I wasn't interested in hearing that, so I hung up the call. I was about to block him when he texted me saying I was immature and that I really wasn't the victim here. If anything, he was the victim because thanks to my irrational decision to post that photo, his parents were no longer speaking to him and he had to postpone his business idea. He told me that he at least expected an apology from me, but he hadn't even gotten that, and instead I sent him divorce papers just to make him feel bad for helping a friend. So I instantly replied via text that I was truly sorry for posting that photo. And then I told him that to balance things out, I would just post a picture of myself with my male friends where I'm being inappropriately close with them. Maybe that will help him see things from my perspective, and then I blocked him. So that's done. Update 3. Well, we are in the middle of settlement negotiations right now. It's still going to be a while before the divorce is finalized, but yesterday I received a text from Allison saying that she was really sorry because she accidentally ended up sleeping with Jacob. She claimed that he was going through a tough time with the divorce and everything, so she was trying to comfort him, and it just happened. Of course, I didn't believe any of that, and I knew she was only saying it to rub it in my face. There's no way this was their first time after living together for more than 3 weeks. But I didn't care because I was getting rid of him, and she was going to be stuck with him. She could have him anyway. I didn't want him anymore. I'm sure that a man who has cheated once will do it again without thinking twice. Besides, if he cheated on me, his wife of 2 years, Allison would have to be pretty naive to believe he wouldn't cheat on her at some point. But, oh well, it's no longer my problem. I'm out of here. Update 4. Before I get into the details of this update, let me clarify a few things about my in-laws. Since many people have been asking about them and our relationship, as well as why they're not helping him with his business because of all this. My relationship with my in-laws is normal. In fact, they've been calling me throughout the divorce process to check on me and offer help with whatever I need. The reason they're not helping him is that my in-laws have strong values. I wouldn't say they're conservative in the traditional sense, as they're not religious or go to church, but they do believe in marriage and are totally against infidelity. They have been a huge support for me during this time, and I'm grateful for that. At least something good came out of my relationship with Jacob. Now, regarding the update, this is going to be a bit lengthy because there are several things to share, some of which have truly left me in shock. To start, the divorce is now finalized. We split everything 50-50, including the house, so we had to sell it because Jacob didn't have the money to buy out my share, and neither did his new girlfriend, Allison. I call her that because of what I'll share later. Jacob and Allison have moved to a new place, and I've also found a new place to live. I'm no longer staying at my friend's house either, but that also has an explanation. As for Allison and Jacob, they didn't wait for the divorce to be finalized to start a relationship. So I wasn't wrong when I left the house because of the inappropriate relationship they were having. However, that's not the worst or the most surprising part. The most shocking thing is that Allison is now pregnant. One might think the baby is Jacob's, but knowing both of them, I wouldn't be surprised if she's been unfaithful to him, just like he probably was in the past. Either way, as I mentioned in my previous update, I've distanced myself from all of this, so it's no longer my problem. Whether the baby is Jacob's or not, I couldn't care less. I even wish him luck because he's going to need it. On the other hand, his parents have cut off all contact with him, so there's no money for his business, which, as far as I know, hasn't even started yet. Moreover, most of our mutual friends and some of his relatives are also on my side. They can't believe Jacob threw everything away for a high school fling. And yes, I said most, because some mutual friends, or people I thought were my friends, are on Jacob's side. Some people hinted at this in the comments, but now I have confirmation that Jacob also cheated on me with my friend. That's why she was so interested in getting me to delete the photo from my post, a photo I took in my own home, so there was no legal reason for them to sue me. She also advised me to talk to his parents and fix things, but only because she was interested in Jacob. I still feel sick thinking about how she was my friend. I found all this out because one of her friends told me. They went out one night and met up with Jacob during one of those supposed friend hangouts he used to tell me about. She didn't know he was married, but after I posted the photo and rumors started circulating among our mutual friends, she decided to contact me to let me know. She also didn't know my now ex-friend was capable of that. and she didn't like that behavior either. That makes me feel a little better, because it seems there are still people in the world who have values and aren't just cheating scumbags. So that's everything. I hope this update wasn't too boring, as I understand not everyone wants to hear about other people's misfortunes. But this is my life. The good thing is that I've shed some burdens and can move forward with my life.